Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Football Upside. I am Justin. That is Kyle. We always like to start off by saying thanks for checking out our Fantasy Football podcast and YouTube channel. And hey, Kyle, we got a special guest with us today. We have Jeff Bratz, also at Hotline Fantasy on Twitter. And it's kind of funny, Jeff, we didn't talk about this before, but at Hotline Fantasy, that was kind of a unique Twitter handle, because you might get some other followers if you don't put that Fantasy Football Hotline as the actual name as well. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
But hey, man, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, you guys. And yeah, definitely when I was originally telling my family about what my Twitter was called, I got a couple of interesting looks, that's for sure.
Yeah, I was catching that right before we were getting going. I was like, man, that's a unique Twitter handle. You might get some additional followers that you just weren't ready for, I guess. Some additional spam followers, I guess, right? But yeah, we want to get right into it. Kyle and I wanted to, bring on Jeff because, we're part of a very unique league, and we've mentioned it a few times on here. And we wanted to get Jeff, who's the founder of the Quarantine Community League, and we just thanks for coming on with us. And first question was, what was the motivation behind creating the Quarantine Community League? And as we go through here, you might hear us call it the QCL. And what were you hoping to achieve whenever you created it?
Yeah, so realistically, I really got into fantasy football Twitter about a year ago, and the fantasy football Twitter community is so great. They embraced me with open arms, and I was just looking for a way to get them more involved, get them more engaged. I had seen a league kind of like this happen on Instagram, where people would have their followers vote for picks made, and I thought it would translate really well to Twitter. So what I was really hoping to achieve with it was just creating a league where that was centered all around getting the Twitter community involved, having them make every pick, basically run our teams. And the only reason we're there is to kind of generate and get that content around for everyone to see it.
Sure.
Awesome.
That's pretty good. Yeah. I mean, it was an interesting draft, definitely, to see what was happening. There was a lot of, I think there was a lot of like intentional voting, trying to other people trying to screw with other people a little bit. There were some picks that were pretty surprising. I think somebody went 0 running back unintentionally. So for quite a while there. So it was pretty interesting. How did you end up picking who was going to be participating in the league as the managers, essentially, the other Twitter participants?
Yeah, so when I set out to look for members, I crafted a list of about 15 accounts, and I was really looking for a mix of guys with a decent amount of followers, because obviously we're looking to generate as much exposure in general, because another reason behind creating this league was hopefully it will generate a lot of followers for all of us and help us build more of a platform for our own individual content. But I was looking for guys with more followers that I really liked the content they were producing. And then I was also looking for guys, not necessarily with no followers, but, maybe who I felt were being underestimated by the fantasy football Twitter community a little bit, and they deserved a bit more love. I had been following them for a while, liked the content, saw that they were grinding. So just trying to get a mix of guys with a lot of followers, guys with a little followers, but just with that overall sense of grit and grind for the fantasy football community and just a love for football.
Absolutely. Sure. And it probably sounds like we kind of fell into that the latter category. Yeah, we were definitely kind of newer to fantasy football Twitter. So yeah, I was kind of thinking, I think it was, I was kind of going back and forth with you a few times on Twitter. And I think that's kind of what kind of led to us kind of being on that list of the 15. So definitely appreciated that we made the top 12. So thanks for that. Absolutely. If I hadn't said that yet.
Hey, no problem. You guys were actually, I think, one of the first 4 names I had written down, just because you have been so open to, going back and forth with me and definitely talking with me about that. So I appreciate you guys being so active.
Not a problem, man. So Kyle kind of mentioned just briefly about the draft process, and it was a very unique draft process, and kind of explain the process and maybe the reasoning behind you came up with that. You kind of mentioned Instagram and everything like that. Is that kind of how they did it where it comes to the polls, or kind of explain exactly how we did it as well for everybody?
Yeah, so the league that I loosely based this on, I think that they had their Twitter followers pick every other round or the first couple rounds. They didn't have them pick every round, but that
Hmm.
was something that I was determined to do for this
Yeah.
league. And I realized that that was a grind, and that was probably going to be the hardest selling point for getting everyone involved, because I think this is what, like a 10 or 11-day draft, and
It
it
was
was
dang
Yeah.
near a couple weeks, I think.
yeah, it was nonstop, and especially for me because I generated and I created the individual account for the league, and I was
Hmm.
retweeting
Yeah.
every single poll. So I really couldn't be away from my phone or my computer for more than an hour at a time. But it
Yeah,
was
I remember actually thinking during the draft, man, this has got to be a lot of work for you. This has got to be a lot of work. But you were diligent with it, man. You stuck
You
with it.
were.
You were there the whole time on the whole thing. And I was impressed with that.
Yeah,
So,
you're very transparent throughout the whole process as well, man. We were using the Sleeper app, of course, and that Sleeper chat, man. There's a few times where it just kept going and going and going. We were getting a lot of feedback from everybody, all the commissioners of the leagues or of the teams in the league, and yeah, that was really cool. Like that was a good way for us to all kind of get to know everybody, and yeah, we didn't know anybody in this league, and it feels like it's been a pretty good camaraderie, and it's really cool that we can kind of get going and see what we can do in this league. I know you were kind of mentioning like, hey, let's try to draw up some more interest before we get going, before the season actually starts. So, but
yeah.
Kyle, what you got for the next question?
You've explained a little bit about the process and where you got the inspiration from, but do you think that what you set out to create is actually what ended up being what we've got so far? Or do you think that it's kind of morphed a little bit as the process happened, that it evolved into something a little bit different than what you initially envisioned?
honestly, it's pretty close to what I was originally envisioning, and obviously for that entire idea to come into fruition, we're going to have to see how it plays out in the
Mm-hmm.
regular season, because that's going to be big, trying to get the communities involved with our start sit decisions for every week, and putting together trades whenever we come about that, free agent pickups, waiver wire additions, stuff like that. That's all stuff that we still have to figure out as a
Yeah.
league. But for the draft, I mean, all 11 guys that I got into the league were so awesome about
Mm-hmm.
giving me feedback for what they were thinking, bouncing ideas off each other. And we all pretty much stuck to the original idea of sending out an hour poll. Originally, it was going to be 2 hours, but then in the first day, when we got through like 6 picks, I realized that was not going to happen because we could not do this thing for a month. But
No.
yeah, everyone was awesome about sticking to it. I don't think we had longer than like 3 hours in a gap between picks, and that was just because their phone died or something like that. So
Yeah.
everyone was awesome with staying on top of their picks and
Mm-hmm.
sending it out, pretty much putting out the message that I was trying to create with the league.
Yeah.
Cool.
I know Kyle is actually in the middle of a just
Oh
exhaustive
gosh.
type
Yeah.
draft right now. So that's like Kyle's doing the opposite of what we did. Like you said, Jeff, it was more, set in stone. Like, okay, we were going to do 2 hours and then we're going to go down to 1 hour, and everybody was really on top of it. And, if there was a little bit of a backlog, you just hopped right in there and took care of it all. So I think I bugged you a few times about hopping in there and maybe taking care of a few of them for me. Got to make sure we know what the Twitter community can pick for us. But I also wanted to give a little bit more time for us here towards the end, and kind of let you, talk about what you're doing right now. It sounds like you're right in the middle of a lot of stuff right now. So go ahead and let everybody know that's fans of the Upside what you're doing, Jeff.
Yeah, so my podcast, The Rollout, actually just moved from Spotify after our first season of 27 episodes, I think it was. We're moving to YouTube just like you guys, trying
Mm-hmm.
to expand the type of content that we can create, just trying to add that visual component. I think really expands what we can do with what we're trying to get done
Mm-hmm.
more. And then I'm also the head of NFL content for a website called The Breakdown. I'm a fantasy football writer for them as well. I've been with them for 7 months, I think now. And I am also a writer for a website called Overtime Heroics, covering the Patriots and fantasy football for them. So be sure to check out all 3 of those platforms.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then what are the Twitter handles again for yourself and for the league that we're in?
Yeah, so the Twitter handle for myself is at Hotline Fantasy with a capital H and a capital F. Definitely interesting name there. But yeah, and then for the league, it's, I believe, at the QC League, or you can just look up Quarantine Community League. I'm pretty sure we're the only account on Twitter with that name.
Yeah,
I
so it
think
definitely sounds like you're grinding it out, man, and we appreciate all the content that you're putting out there, and definitely appreciate you joining us. And Kyle, do you have anything else for at
I don't think so.
Hotline
Make sure
Fantasy?
that if you've given us a subscribe, that you run over there and subscribe to Jeff's new site or new channel on YouTube, the rollout. I'm sure that you can find it just by searching the rollout.
We'll throw it in our description below.
We'll throw a link to him down there in our description as well, and then that way you can check him out and get a lot of good East Coast bias there. Right?
Yeah. Thank you guys. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, we thank you for coming on, and thank you for inviting us to the league. We appreciate it a lot. And for everybody who watches us regularly, thank you for being a fan of the Upside, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
See you guys.